Hello, Crossroads friends and family, and welcome to the end of this week's Going Deeper as we have been talking about being poured out. And from our study in the book of Philippians, as the Apostle Paul said, even if his life is being poured out like a drink offering, he rejoices. And so we've been investigating, what does it feel like to be poured out? What are the characteristics of a life that is being poured out? And the idea of feeling emptied can sometimes feel like a defeat, and when just the opposite might be the case. And so we wanted to end this week by reading one of the passages where drink offerings were talked about in the Old Testament. And if you remember, if you didn't see on Sunday, we talked about how there were 5 different kinds of offerings that were prescribed and were practiced by the Israelites. And none of the 5 of them was a drink offering. A drink offering was an extra added piece, added usually to the voluntary offerings. And so in Numbers, chapter 15, verses 1 to 6, this is what God says to Moses. The heading is even supplementary offerings. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, after you enter the land I'm giving you as a home, and you present to the Lord food offerings from the herd or the flock as an aroma pleasing to the Lord, whether burnt offerings or sacrifices for special vows or free will offerings or festival offerings. Then the person who brings an offering shall present to the Lord a grain of offering of 1/10 of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of olive oil. Each lamb for the burnt offering or the sacrifice, prepare 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering." So 2 things that I wanted to point out in these verses today. One is that Moses is given these instructions by God before they actually take possession of the land that God has promised them. So God is giving them instructions that they will need when they see his promises come to fruition. And I think that's so important, because many times in the life of the journey of faith, we have to decide what we are going to do prior to getting there. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the battle or the situation or the relationship or the decision-making process, sometimes at that point, things are far enough down the road that you can't decide to do the thing that God had already provided for them to do. So this is an important thing for us to pre-decide, what does God want from me in certain situations, even if I'm not in them yet. And then secondly, that this was just a reminder of who got me here in the first place. And this drink offering that was not required, it was on top of an already voluntary offering. And I wonder how this weekend we could offer to God not something that's required, but something that's just a sign of our gratitude, our love, our joy that comes from knowing him. And maybe that's an offering of worship. Maybe that's an offering of prayer. Maybe that's an offering of your time or your money that's not required by anybody, but that you just want to give. Again, the Apostle Paul says, even if I'm being poured out like a drink offering, I rejoice. I'm glad that I get to do it. And then he says, and you should rejoice with me. So let's rejoice together as we celebrate being poured out. Lord, thanks for this picture of what life looks like in your hands, and I pray that we would be celebrators of the goodness that you have shown to us. Prayed in your name. Amen.